Thank you, Rabbi.
So in this week Parsha is Parsha Mishpatim, and the title they gave this, it's the Rebbe Sicha, and the title they gave this Sicha is, to be a moral person you need to be a believer. To be a moral person you need to be a believer. Meaning you cannot separate morality from being a believer. Someone would think, why do I have to believe? I can still be a moral person without believing. The Rabbi connects it to when he says, in order to be a truly moral person, you have to be a believer in God. Last week, Parsha, we read about the receiving the Torah, that Hashem revealed Himself with thunders and lightnings, and He gave the Jewish people the Torah. Right? Now, in this week, Parsha Mishpatim, we want to know, what is it? What's in the Torah? What is it concise, right? So we look at the name of the Parsha and we read Mishpatim. And now the Torah, and we know that in the Torah there are three types of Mishpatim, right? There is the three types of mitzvahs. Mishpatim is the mitzvahs. And there are three types. There is the mitzvahs that are above intellect, that are called chukim, laws. They transcend intellect. There are mitzvahs that we would never get to it on our own, but once they were given to us, they make sense to us. For example, the mitzvah of Pesach, to celebrate Pesach, to celebrate Sukkot, as a remembrance for what was done to us in Mitzrayim. So it makes sense, but we wouldn't come up with it ourselves, that we have to eat matzah for 7 days. These type of mitzvahs called edut, testimonial mitzvahs. We're doing it because of things that happened in the past to the Jewish people. So we understand it once it has been given to us. And then there is the mitzvahs that are very simple, that make sense to us, like the mitzvah of helping someone else, or not killing, not stealing, basic things that are common sense. Right? So these are called Mishpatim. Eidus, Chukim, Mishpatim. So Chukim is the above intellect. Eidus is intellect that we wouldn't do it without Hashem telling us, but once He gave it to us, we understand it. And then we have Mishpatim, that even if Hashem didn't give it to us, if we want to maintain a normal society, we would come to it on our own. Not to steal, not to kill, to be nice to each other. And most of this of Parshat Mishpatim is dealing with commandments that are seemingly very logical commandments, that we would have come to it on our own. Most of the Parsha deals with this mitzvahs. So the Rabbi says now the question we have is why the Torah chose to accentuate and emphasize right after Matan Torah the simple mitzvahs. If you want to show what the Torah is, the Torah was given, you want to say what's in it. Finally, we have a chance to open up to see what's in it. You tell me about the simple mitzvahs. Tell me about the interesting, complicated, godly mitzvahs. Why you come up with the basic mitzvahs that we could have come up on our own? We don't need Matan Torah for this, seemingly. For that, we needed such a great revelation of Matan Torah. Tell me not to kill and not to steal. So the Rabbi says the Torah wanted to teach us how we should approach these logical mitzvahs, how we should understand it. The natural inclination is to base everything on intellect, on rationale, on common sense. And sometimes a person can come to an understanding or to a conclusion that there is no need, there is no necessity, or it's not a must to believe in God to understand that you shouldn't hurt somebody else, right? Or you should compensate someone that you harmed intentionally or unintentionally. It's similarly things are common sense. So then the Rebbe says this paragraph is called the flexible intellect or flexible brain. Flexible brain. The Torah emphasizes that even these mitzvahs, when I say these mitzvahs, I mean mitzvahs that it's easy for us to understand. We have to base them on belief in God. The foundation of these mitzvahs, don't steal, don't kill, basic things, need to be founded on the belief in God. We have to do these mitzvahs, even the intellectual, even the things that we understand, not because that our understanding obligates us to do them, rather because God commanded us to do them. And therefore, right after the being in Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, and receiving the Torah right away starts to deal with Mishpatim, with the logical commandments. Why? That we should feel that the basis and the foundation of these mitzvahs is connected in Sinai. And that's what Rashi says. Ma'elu misinai afelu misinai. If everything that you heard, the 10 commandments that you heard in Sinai, you should know, Ve'ela mishpatim, these commandments are also from Sinai. Don't try to separate them and say, oh, this makes sense, so that has nothing to do with the belief in God, with Matan Torah. No, these mitzvahs, Torah starts with them to teach us that they are connected to Sinai, they are connected with Hashem, with the belief in God. And why this Yesod, this foundation, is so important? So the Rabbi says a few reasons. Number one, we cannot base our Jewish way of life on logic alone and intellect alone. Why? Because intellect, despite all of its importance, cannot be a strong foundation for moral life. Why? Because the brain is flexible, and the intellect is bound to your will. Your will is not bound to your intellect. Your intellect is bound to your will. Meaning that you would do, your intellect would follow your will. Your will is not following your intellect. You want something, and now your brain is working how to get there. Okay? Let's say you decided you want to have a specific car. And I tell you the car is $70,000. So the wheels are turning now in your mind, how can I get to that? How can I get to it? So maybe you have the option of financing, you have the option of you're checking all the options, how to get to what you wanted. So you're using your brain. The brain is serving the will. The will wanted the car. It was not intellectually that you wanted it. You saw it on the road, you liked it. Fell in love with it. And now the brain is working hard to get there. So what's the problem with it? Since the brain intellect is flexible and is always subjugated to the will of a person, when individual wants, it can develop a theory. Intellectually, it can develop a theory that according to that theory, not only that you are allowed to harm somebody, it's a mitzvah to harm somebody. That's what intellect can do.
Make you think.
It can make you think that you're allowed to harm somebody, and in this specific circumstance, it's also a mitzvah to harm him. And intellect can prove you something, and then it can prove you the opposite. That's why they say, you're probably going to like it, that it's never good to have an intellectual person as the president. If he's intellectual, one day he's going to make this argument, and one day he's going to make this argument, but he's not going to do anything because he can explain why this is good and why actually it's not good. One day he'll explain to you this way it's good.
No, those are called pseudo-intellectuals.
Right,
they're not really intellectuals.
Right.
They're pseudo-intellectuals. They think they're smart, but they're not.
No, but even if they are smart and they can find arguments, real arguments, real arguments to explain to you why the idea is good, and therefore you should do it, and then explain to you why the idea is not so good, and therefore you shouldn't do it.
That was the last guy.
The bottom line is, you don't do anything. And one is not so intellectual, is going to do. Maybe he's going to do a few mistakes, but he's going to do a lot. A lot will be accomplished.
So that guy's really an intellectual, and he's a pragmatist. That's why he gets things.
I'm just giving an example, the
Right.
idea.
Pseudo-intellectual. They're so smart, they use big words, but they find a way to muscle out of everything. You know?
So therefore, because the intellect is bound to the will of a person, is subjugate to his will, it doesn't have the capability of limiting the will.
Jeff Bezos sends a picture.
And that cannot be, your intellect cannot be your authority for life.
Right.
Your authority to life has to be something higher than intellect. Another reason why we cannot base our way of life on intellect and logic, the same way that Hashem is not limited, His mitzvahs are not limited. Okay? And every mitzvah, even a mitzvah that we can understand with our intellect, there is a lot of deeper meanings that are way beyond our intellect, way beyond our comprehension and understanding, infinitely beyond us. And if a person would do the mitzvah only because of his logical aspect, say, I'm doing it because this makes sense to me, he's limiting himself and the mitzvah, right? In a way, he's missing out all the depth that is in the mitzvah. Therefore, we have to remember that the foundation to all the mitzvahs, even mitzvahs that are logical mitzvahs and we can understand them easily, is the belief in God. That's the foundation for all the mitzvahs, the belief in God, and we are fulfilling the mitzvahs first and foremost because God commanded us to do so. This type of approach, this type of attitude is promising that the moral that you have will be stable and will be real. And not something that changes every Monday and Thursday.
Right.
And this is how we connect. This is how we are communicating through the intellectual mitzvahs and even mitzvahs that we can understand rationally with the creator of the world and the leader of the world. Bruchim Tiyah.